up, guys? JT Anime Nerd here, bringing you all that nerdy goodness. Today, we continue my version of the DC Extended Universe / Snyderverse with my pitch for the Cyborg movie. Now, I know Cyborg doesn't seem like the kind of hero that even needs his own movie, but I think I've come up with a movie that not only gives Cyborg a standalone story, but also works within the context and tone of the Snyderverse. I also have to admit that since Cyborg doesn't have much solo material to work with, I did the best I could with using very few solo comic concepts. And so I might end up rewriting this original story one day, but I'll just have to see how the viewers respond to it. So without further ado, let's get into it. The story begins many years earlier. We see a young Victor Stone playing soccer with his father, Silas Stone. After Victor kicks the ball into the goal, he yells the phrase, "Booyah," in excitement. Silas then picks up Victor and hugs him in celebration. That night, Victor walks into Silas's office within their home, leading Silas to show Victor what he's working on. Silas shows plans for a program of AI he's working on, stating that he's doing great things to help the world, and that one day, Victor's gonna do great things. He just knows it. As the sun outside the house sets, the light of the sunset flashes red and blackens the screen, showing and giving us the title card for Cyborg. Present-day Metropolis, Star Labs. Cyborg is having his processing skills tested by Ryan Choi, director of nanotechnology at Star Labs. After a successful test, Cyborg asks Ryan about his latest experiment, to which Ryan explains how his current study is on the manipulation of atoms, stating that it was a project he inherited from his mentor, Ray Palmer. Ryan then explains that, like his mentor, he's studying the effects of ultraviolet rays on atoms, to which Cyborg mentions that such a combination could have an explosive effect, to which Ryan states that his mentor figured out the hard way. Suddenly, Cyborg's robotic eye begins to flicker and spark, leading Cyborg to feel what could be described as an immense headache, causing him to scream in pain. Ryan then gets Cyborg on the nearby table, not knowing what to do since he isn't a robotics expert. Cyborg begins to once again have the same visions he saw when they revived Superman, seeing Darkseid take over the world and Superman holding Batman's mask, seemingly have killed him. Cyborg then begins to calm down, free from the visions and shrugging them off as a malfunction, much to Ryan's concern. Ryan attempts to ask Cyborg if it's them again, referring to Darkseid and his servants. However, Cyborg is adamant on stating it was just a malfunction, something Ryan already suspects that it's not. Cyborg then expresses his thoughts on the idea of Ryan making Cyborg a full-fledged robot, despite, once again, Ryan isn't a robotics expert. Ryan argues that Cyborg's humanity is what makes him exceptional, but Cyborg argues that being human may be causing him too many errors. Ryan argues that human error is normal, even for superheroes, but Cyborg counters the argument by stating that any errors can cost him countless lives, and feels that he's more beneficial to the League as a machine that can provide answers to solutions his humanity cannot. Moments later, Cyborg is back in Silas's lab, and then hooks his head into the main computer, going over the vision he saw which depicted the Justice League failing, Darkseid invading, and Superman joining him after the death of an unknown individual whose skeleton is in Superman's arms. Cyborg then places his attention on the skeleton Superman is holding, asking himself who that is, considering that they're in the Batcave, making Cyborg wonder if it's Batman's skeleton that Superman is holding. Cyborg then tells the computer to activate memory files, leading him to witness a neural recording of the latest memory of him, his father, and mother all together. After playing a small game of football, Silas shouts the term "Booyah," followed by hugging his son and wife. A younger Victor asks his father Silas if he'll come to his game when he becomes a real football player, to which Silas promises he will, which would ultimately become an empty promise. Suddenly, after Cyborg shuts off the main computer, a group of soldiers barge into the lab, making Cyborg very defensive, but the soldiers keep their distance while also aiming their guns at Cyborg. As the soldiers warn Cyborg to put his hands up, Cyborg activates a magnetic defense system in the lab, pulling all of the soldiers' guns away. and giving Cyborg a chance to fight back in a similar scene that's almost reminiscent of Batman's famous fight scene in Batman v Superman. Just then, a voice is heard asking for Victor Stone, the true identity of Cyborg. Cyborg then turns to see a masked soldier who shoots Cyborg with an EMP device that attaches to Cyborg's body, rendering him temporarily unconscious. Moments later, when Cyborg wakes up and reactivates with an empty cell, he finds himself slightly limited as there is no technology in the vicinity of his sight, and he's unable to detect any nearby due to a slight pain in his head during the attempt. Just then, the door to Cyborg's prison opens, revealing Rick Flag to be the one who shot Cyborg, as he is wearing the same gear he wore when he shot at Cyborg, with Cyborg being familiar with him as he knows about Task Force X. Rick then escorts Cyborg to their main command center, revealing that they've brought Cyborg to Belle Reve, which also serves as a second Argus headquarters. Cyborg is then introduced to Amanda Waller, someone he's already familiar with, and even warns her about the threat he poses now that he's within their headquarters. However, Waller states that during his unconscious state, they implanted a firewall within his neural interface, stating that his brain is as much cybernetic as his body. With this, Amanda confirms that Cyborg will be unable to hack anything without her push of a button. Cyborg then stands his ground, stating that her bomb implant and threat won't work on him, and he should just push the button while she has the chance. Surprisingly, Waller admits that Cyborg is a more useful asset alive than dead, and in truth, doesn't want to be on the receiving end of Batman's radar for killing a friend of his. Waller then states that she brought out Cyborg here for a different reason, followed by recapping how after the Steppenwolf invasion, the Mother Boxes were split up. One given to the Justice League, one given to the government, and one that no one other than the Justice League know its whereabouts. Cyborg then surmises that Waller wants the secret location of the third Mother Box, to which he adamantly refuses. However, Waller states that that's not the reason he's here, but that he's here because the government's box was stolen. Enraged, Cyborg asks how they even could have lost the box. Just then, the voice of a newly appeared General Swanwick states that it's because Argus took the box and begun a weapon development program involving the box's technology without any government authorization. Waller then arrogantly states that no permission should be needed in the name of national security. However, Swanwick states that he's come on behalf of the Pentagon, stating that Argus is on thin ice and Amanda's rogue of authorizations are put on probation. Swanwick states that he's also been authorized to take Cyborg off her hands, to which Amanda is enraged at, but Swanwick tells her to take it up with the higher-ups. Despite this, Cyborg still wants to know how the box was stolen. Amanda then presents Swanwick and Rick Flag with info and an image of a man named Micron O. Genius, also known as Gizmo for his reputation of tinkering, portrayed by Jesse Eisenberg. A way better role for him than Lex Luthor. Amanda then explains that Gizmo was a prodigy in robotics, enough that Argus couldn't pass up the opportunity to recruit him, but due to his obsession with humanity's flaws, he was put in lockdown for trying to turn Argus agents into robots. Cyborg then asks why this involves him, to which Amanda replies that Gizmo was a student of Silas Stone, his best student, much to Cyborg's surprise. Amanda then checked his cell, finding etchings of something called Project Grid. Swanwick then confirms that Project Grid is what Silas Stone was working on before Cyborg's accident, leading him to shelve the project. Cyborg then looks back at the memory from when he was in his father's office, remembering the blueprints on his desk being titled Project Grid. Cyborg then asks Swanwick if he can get him access to all the data involving Project Grid, to which Swanwick confirms. Swanwick and Cyborg take their leave, with Cyborg telling Amanda that if she pulls this again, she will be on the Batman's bad side. After the two leave, Rick asks Amanda if she's really just going to let him leave, with Amanda stating that while it's currently out of her hands, she's not stupid enough to leave the biggest threat to national security alone. When the two finally get it outside and out of view, Cyborg laments his distress about the firewall implant within his head, leading Swanwick to use his powers to phase his hand into Cyborg's head and attempt to remove the implant, to which it fails. Cyborg then realizes that Swanwick is not human, much to his surprise, something that Swanwick will have to fill him in on another day. Back at Silas's lab, Cyborg looked as much as he could for Project Grid, but turned up with nothing in the main computer. However, he did discover that his father had been keeping a log concerning updates on Gizmo's whereabouts, to which he was confined to the Jump City State Prison after an espionage attempt to steal tech went wrong. This meaning that when Amanda Waller mentioned that they locked him up, supposedly in Belle Reve, he must have escaped prior to his confinement. Just then, Swanwick appears bringing a flash drive of everything he could find about Project Grid. Cyborg imports the data on the flash drive into the main computer, showing that Project Grid was meant to create an AI capable of figuring out the most impossible of tasks, such as the discovery of a cure for cancer, equations to develop advanced technology beyond human comprehension, and calculate logical solutions that could save the world from environmental disaster. This is the information about the project itself, but the AI itself is another story, Swanwick states. However, Cyborg points out the information he got from his father's data on his main computer, stating that their next destination is Jump City. Meanwhile, in Jump City, a strange woman jumps down in front of a jewelry store in a superhuman fashion. The woman then reveals that she has a robotic arm and uses it as a torch to create an opening into the jewelry store. During her collection of the jewels, the woman fails to notice that she tripped the silent alarm, attracting the police to the store. As the police enter, no one seems to be in sight, at least until the cybernetic woman strikes and knocks out the two officers. As the woman leaves the store, she then turns, revealing her to be portrayed by Keke Palmer, and revealing her to be a cyborg due to half of her face being cybernetic, to find a camera looking her way. The cybernetic woman then shoots a beam from her cybernetic eye, destroying the camera. Moments later, the cybernetic woman makes it to her home in an abandoned warehouse, only to be surrounded by Argus soldiers who ambush and detain her. Just then, Amanda Waller appears and introduces herself to the woman, identifying her as Tonia Charles, or Tonia for short. Tonia asks how Waller knows her name, with Amanda stating that it's not hard to learn the identity of the niece of an award-winning scientist, especially one who worked very closely to Silas Stone. Tonia asks what Silas has to do with anything, and Waller replies that there's an item she needs her to retrieve and bring it to them. But Tonia fails to see what she gets out of it, with the threat of death not fazing her. Waller then points out how Tonia's aunt, Sarah Charles, is fighting cancer back in Gotham General Hospital, but knows that Tonia couldn't find a job in Gotham due to her history with enhanced narcotics. So Waller offers her a deal, not bothering to recap the whole cybernetic thing as a form of sincerity. Waller offers to pay off her aunt's hospital bills and ensure that she gets the best treatments, but in exchange for bringing this particular item to them. Tonia asks what the item is, leading Waller to give Tonia a pad with the image of the mother box. In another part of Jump City, Cyborg and Swanwick are escorted to the cell of Gizmo, which is then opened to bring Cyborg face to face with Gizmo. Gizmo introduces himself, in awe of Cyborg, but recognizes what he calls a flaw, which Cyborg questions. Gizmo then confirms that Cyborg's humanity is his biggest flaw, as humanity in itself is flawed and must be corrected. Cyborg then leans to the subject of the mother box, asking what he did with it. Gizmo then explains how he needed the mother box to complete Project Grid, to birth the next generation of Earthling. Cyborg tries asking again, but Gizmo avoids the question, trying to convince Cyborg that he'd be the perfect being if he didn't let his humanity get in the way, stating that he is only half of the results Project Grid was meant to have. Not getting anywhere, Swanwick looks down at Gizmo, his eyes then passively glowing red for a moment. As Cyborg tries to think about what to do next, Swanwick states that they're done here, which confuses Cyborg as Swanwick directs Cyborg out of the cell. Gizmo then begins to shout out that they can't stop perfection and that it's coming soon. As Cyborg tries to ask Swanwick why they're leaving now, Swanwick states that he has the location to his lab, prompting Cyborg to ask how he knows that. Swanwick then shows Cyborg his eyes beginning to glow red, leading Cyborg to ask what he is. Just then, An explosion from the ceiling causes everyone to duck down. Cyborg then hears the sounds of crashing metal coming from behind him, leading him to witness Tonia carry Gizmo and escape out of the hole of the ceiling. Cyborg then flies up through the ceiling to give chase, only to realize that the implant Waller placed in him is messing with his sensor, but sees Tonia leap with superhuman speed to get away from the facility. Cyborg then chases down Tonia as best as he can, but Tonia continues to evade him at every turn. The chase continues until they reach the top of a Wayne Enterprises building. As Tonia looks back, Cyborg senses a form of familiarity with her, just as Tonia looks back and seemingly recognizes Cyborg. Suddenly, missiles end up shooting at the group, bringing down the A and Y of the lit-up Wayne sign at the top of the building. A helicopter then descends as Rick Flag is riding in it, two soldiers holding up missile launchers at the group. Cyborg asks them what they're doing, with Rick Flag responding that they're doing their job, signaling Tonia to jump on the helicopter. Rick then lets it be known that according to records, Victor's dead, so no one will notice him gone again, followed by the two soldiers shooting Cyborg off the building and damaging him almost beyond repair. As the helicopter flies away, what's left of Cyborg's body continues to fall until he suddenly floats. Before losing consciousness, Cyborg looks up at the savior that caught him, none other than who we all know as Martian Manhunter. Meanwhile at Belle Reve, Waller meets up with Rick, Tonia, and Gizmo, wanting to know where the mother box is. Surprisingly, Gizmo complies, but Waller is wary of him, telling Rick to be ready to kill Gizmo the moment they find the mother box, to which Rick agrees. Back at Silas's lab, Cyborg awakens repaired, both Swanwick and Ryan Choi being present to greet him. Cyborg is then perturbed, stating that he saw something inhuman. This is when Swanwick decides to show his true form to Cyborg and Ryan, stating that his true name is John Jones, also known as Martian Manhunter. Despite Cyborg's curiosity, Martian Manhunter states that his presence on Earth is going to have to be a story for another day, then stating that the reason he wanted to leave the prison was because he read Gizmo's mind and knows everything he does now involving Project Grid, catching Cyborg's attention. Meanwhile in Jump City, Gizmo brings Waller, Rick, and Tonia to his lab, where they witness the mother box in a container, its energy being used to power something within a nearby capsule. As Rick gets ready to execute Gizmo, Waller stops him for a second and asks Gizmo what the mother box has to do with Project Grid. Back at Silas's lab, Martian Manhunter explains that to create Cyborg, Silas imprinted the incomplete data from Project Grid into the mother box through the electrical neural device used to activate the mother box. Back at Gizmo's lab, however, Gizmo states that the fact that it was a neural electric shock that awakened the box meant one thing: the mother box was alive, and so knew that in order to harness its power, Gizmo needed to appeal to its conscious nature. Gizmo then goes on to state that the longer he studied the box, the more he got to know that what the box wanted was the same thing as he wanted: evolution, but through destruction. Gizmo says that the box taught him that if humanity will not accept evolution, then their free will of choice to accept it must be ripped from them, whether they understand it or not, and must be forced to evolve. Just then, Tonia knocks out all of the soldiers, including Rick Flag, out, much to Waller's shock. Gizmo then states that it looks like Waller didn't plan everything out, revealing that Gizmo already got to Tonia long before Waller did, asking how Waller thinks his little cyber girl here got out her fancy tune-ups in the first place. Back at Silas's lab, Cyborg asks Martian Manhunter what exactly Gizmo is after with Project Grid, leading Martian Manhunter to reveal that Gizmo plans to create the AI from a copy of the mother box's consciousness. Knowing that the mother box only craves destruction, Cyborg states that they need to find Gizmo's lab. Ryan then confirms that he's taken out the neural implant, allowing Cyborg to use his satellite sensor to find Gizmo's location and pursue him before it's too late. Much to John and Ryan's protest, Cyborg then recklessly exits the lab. Moments later, Cyborg arrives at the lab, seeing Waller, Rick, and the other soldiers restrained when suddenly, Cyborg is knocked out from behind by Cybergirl. Another moment later, Cyborg awakens strapped to a table and hooked up to cables that connect to both the mother box and the mysterious capsule. Just then, Cybergirl approaches Cyborg, looking at him with a solemn expression. Tonia then questions Cyborg's name, referring to him as Victor. Cyborg asks who she is, to which she responds with her name, Latonia Charles, reminding him that they went to the same high school in Gotham. Cyborg then remembers who she is, but remembers that her name is Sarah. However, Tonia then confirms that her aunt had her change her identity and took her name since Tonia had a reputation for taking empowered drugs called tar in Gotham. As Cyborg scans Tonia's own cybernetics, he asks what happened to her. Before Tonia can answer, Gizmo appears and mocks the reunion, but attempts to get things moving forward by greeting Cyborg. Cyborg then scans the room and detects a construct within the capsule. Gizmo then explains that what's in the capsule is just something he put together using remnants from technology he was able to harvest from a big battle in Gotham involving a quote-unquote cyborg Superman. But it's nothing without the power from the mother box and the data left over in Cyborg's body. Cyborg then realizes that Gizmo wanted Cyborg to find him, remembering that the encoded data within him is what awakened the mother box and created his cybernetic form. Cyborg tries to tell Gizmo that the mother box is manipulating him, that it won't give him what he wants. However, Gizmo argues that the mother box and Gizmo want the same thing, the evolution or perfection of humanity, whichever comes first. As long as he can transform or recreate humanity into its perfect form, then he'll finally be able to live in a world he can tolerate. As Gizmo starts setting up the machine, Cyborg begs Tonia to stop him, but Gizmo laughs and states that she wouldn't ever turn on him because her life belongs to him. Cyborg then attempts to appeal to Tonia's kind nature, but Gizmo had finally activated the machine, ultimately siphoning all the data he could from the mother box and Cyborg, mixing them together within the robotic body within the capsule. After much agony and pain from the siphoning process, the data from Cyborg and the mother box is ultimately siphoned and copied, creating the complete data to produce the AI that now lives within the mechanical frame within the capsule. Suddenly, a pair of glowing green eyes is seen within the capsule, followed by the capsule door being flung open and crashing into the wall across from it. Just then, we see a silver robot with glowing green energy within it, showing a skeletal facial structure on one half of its face, while the other side resembles Cyborg's cybernetic half. Gizmo looks in awe at the sight of pure perfection, despite the look of its incomplete body. As the robot analyzes itself, it tells Gizmo that the process was a success, making Gizmo very happy and revealing that Grid is voiced by a distortedly voiced Ray Fisher. Gizmo talks of finally taking the first step toward true perfection, with Grid agreeing that it's time for the next step. Just then, Grid then grabs Gizmo by the neck, shocking Tonia and Cyborg, who tries to unrestrain himself. As Grid holds its grip on Gizmo, it sends through its arm a form of viral energy and injects it within Gizmo. After Grid drops him, Gizmo then begins to feel great pain from his back, leading two pairs of cybernetic spider-like limbs to exit from his back, seemingly turning Gizmo into an incomplete robotic soldier. Gizmo's head then rises, showing two glowing blue eyes, a symbolization of his ascension from humanity. As Gizmo rises, when celebration would be expected, Gizmo possesses a blank face of emotionlessness. Cyborg asks Grid what it did to him, to which it responds that it placed a cyber-organic nanoserum mixed with apocalyptic DNA that works on a cellular level, using the data from the mother box and replacing his organic physiology with that of a full robotic frame, making Gizmo a full robot devoid of emotion, and despite still looking like a human. Tonia then begins to realize what she's helped create, but Grid states that with this form of evolution, no one will be affected by ailment or illness again, confirming that this can heal Sarah. As Tonia is now conflicted, Cyborg tries to argue Grid's statement, asking what good is being alive if you can't feel anymore, claiming that without her humanity, how is Sarah even going to care about Tonia anymore? After thinking it through, however, Tonia expresses how that at least her Aunt Sarah would still be alive, and asks Grid if what he states is the truth. Grid confirms and promises that while Sarah will be devoid of emotion, she will be able to live a decent life for herself from then on out. Shockingly, Tonia agrees to join Grid but refuses to be turned until her aunt can be turned first, to which Grid agrees. As Cyborg suits unrestrains himself, Cyber Girl immediately jumps and tries to crush Cyborg under her feet, allowing him to become unrestrained and fight back. As Cyborg gets ready to fight, Gizmo then infects the remaining Argus soldiers, turning them into what Grid refers to as a Technos Sapien. Cyborg quickly and reluctantly frees Waller and Rick Flag, allowing them to escape, but now must deal with the Technos Sapiens alone. While Cyborg battles the Technos Sapiens, Grid states that they have much to do if they're to share their perfection with the world, escaping from the laboratory with the mother box in hand. After a lengthy fight, Cyborg is then piled on by the Technos Sapiens, who then attempt to infect Cyborg. However, this somehow causes a slight explosion, which causes them to separate from each other. Just when Cyborg is ready to finish the fight, Martian Manhunter arrives in time to help defeat the remaining Technos Sapiens. Martian Manhunter then passively states that he can't read the minds of machines, fully robotic or not, so he asks what he missed. Meanwhile, Grid and company regroup at the highest building in Jump City, with Tonia asking why they aren't headed to Gotham General to turn her mother into a Technos Sapien. Grid then states that she will be turned, but alongside every other person on Earth. Gizmo then explains that the main goal is to turn all of humanity into Technos Sapiens, completing their evolution. Grid then states that to do so means they'll need to charge the mother box using a power source that they can spread at the nano serum neurally through, and so need a great amount of electricity to charge the box before then. Cybergirl then gets an idea of where they need to go. Back at Gizmo's lab, Martian Manhunter has been recapped on everything. Manhunter then explains that he's heard of the term Technos Sapien before, stating that they were an alien race that existed within another reality, but was conquered by Darkseid, and their resources were stolen as a result. Manhunter then explains that Technos Sapiens are a cyber-organic parasite that infect and attach to hosts in order to survive, and have wreaked havoc on many planets, even beyond their own reality. Manhunter then reveals that it's because of their very being that is the reason apocalyptic technology seems so lifelike and organic, because it's made from the very Technos Sapiens themselves. Cyborg then realizes that what Martian Manhunter's just said means that the mother box is made from the same technology, meaning that Grid must be some sort of hive mind that represents their race. Martian Manhunter replies that either way, unless they can think of something, they'll infect the whole world, and Martian Manhunter confirms that what Gizmo still looks like now isn't his true form, but can still be saved before then, as the moment a Technos Sapien transforms their host, the host dies. Cyborg then decides to hack into Gizmo's main computer to locate where they might go, realizing that the mother box possesses an energy structure that can infect people with the virus neurally, but knows that they'll need a sufficient power source to spread the virus. Cyborg then realizes where their next destination will be, as before they find a power source, the box needs to be fully charged. That morning, Grid and company arrive and attack the Jump City power plant. Gizmo then extracts the cables connected to the main power grid in order to change the mother box. Just then, Cyborg and Martian Manhunter arrive. Witnessing the arrival of Cyborg and Martian Manhunter, Gizmo snaps his fingers, sending a group of Technos Sapiens to attack the duo. Gizmo then tells Cybergirl to protect Grid while the mother box charges, while he deals with Cyborg and the alien. While Martian Manhunter deals with the Technos Sapiens, Cyborg and Gizmo enter a one-on-one battle. After a lengthy fight, Grid has successfully charged the mother box, but must now leave to place where they can activate the box and assimilate all of humanity at once. Grid tells Cybergirl to come with him, much to Cybergirl's protest due to not wanting to leave Gizmo behind. Grid, however, assures her that whatever happens to him, it will be a sacrifice worth saving her aunt for. Reluctantly convinced, Cyborg witnesses Grid and Cybergirl making their escape, while Gizmo rants about how he will not let anyone get in the way of perfection. Gizmo then knocks Cyborg down and grabs him by the head. trying to infect him with the Technos Sapien virus. Like the previous Technos Sapiens, however, Gizmo is pushed back by a small explosion of blue light, much to Cyborg's surprise. As Gizmo gets up and charges at Cyborg with his four-pronged legs, Cyborg then decides to grab them and begin absorbing the infectious energy from within it, realizing that instead of it infecting him, he's extracting the Technos Sapien virus from its host. As Cyborg extracts the virus from Gizmo, he begins seeing the visions of Darkseid's future takeover of the Earth, as well as the deaths of Aquaman and Wonder Woman, a dead Green Lantern known as Kilowog, and Superman holding Batman's cowl once again. Back in reality, Cyborg succeeds in extracting the virus from Gizmo, allowing him to revert to his human body, but Cyborg shakes in fear from once again seeing the vision that haunts him so. Cyborg then cowers for a moment in a corner of rubble, shocked at the emotions running through his mind. Martian Manhunter then approaches Cyborg, implying his victory against the Technos Sapiens from earlier. Jean then assumes to Cyborg that fear is something he hasn't felt in a long time, since his mother's death. Cyborg then questions Jean, as he claimed that he couldn't read the minds of a cyborg. Jean then states that that is what he believed at first, but now realizes that what kept him from reading Cyborg's mind earlier is that he held back his humanity, keeping his nearly emotionless cybernetic side at the forefront of his mind. Cyborg calmly argues that despite his dispute against Gizmo's ravings, in a way, he's right about humanity. Ever since Steppenwolf's invasion, Cyborg feels that he needs to be more cold like a robot if he is to protect the people he loves, not wanting to lose anyone after seeing his mother and father die in front of him. Martian Manhunter then reveals that he is in fact a Martian who lived a peaceful life on Mars, with his wife and daughters. However, that all ended when the flames of Darkseid reached their planet, the Unity bringing flames upon them, and the very element they once worshipped became their greatest weakness. Jean then states that he survived trying to escape with his family in a nearby ship, but the Unity caught up to them before they could enter the ship, leading him to escape in failure. When he arrived on Earth and saw the potential in humanity, despite their flaws, he wanted to work hard to protect every single one of them by putting his emotions aside. But then he met Superman and Lois, and realized that only through emotion, compassion, love, fear, and sorrow can life truly shine. Cyborg then asks why Jean is telling him all of this, to which Jean states that he's telling him this because what makes Cyborg a hero is his humanity, leading Jean to then tell Cyborg that running from his fear of Darkseid is not going to change that. Something then clicks with Cyborg, with him realizing something that Martian Manhunter mentioned earlier, confusing Jean in the process. Cyborg then states that it's the Unity, or at least a version of it, one that can spread the Technos Sapien virus worldwide through an energy surge, confirming that that's why they needed the charge, but now they need a safe place for the process to begin. Jean wonders where they would go, with Cyborg thinking of only one place. Meanwhile, in Pozarnov, Russia, the very place Steppenwolf brought the mother boxes, Grid prepares to activate the single mother box's own version of the Unity that will infect every human on Earth with the Technos Sapien virus. Grid then tells Cybergirl to keep watch, as her aunt's salvation is at hand. There may be those on their way to stop that. Cybergirl then drops down to stand guard by Grid, while Grid itself prepares to activate what Grid calls the assimilation. Back at the power plant, Martian Manhunter wonders even if they do get there in time, how can they stop the mother box from infecting everyone? Moments later, Cyborg and Jean enter Silas's lab, with Ryan Choi, who's already there, pulling out a capsule filled with energy that he never wanted to show publicly, but at this point has no choice due to the circumstances. Cyborg then explains that this device is powered from the energy of a dwarf star that Ray Palmer found in his youth, being the foundation of his work. Ryan then explains that this canister possesses enough dwarf star energy to shrink anything to the size of an atom. Cyborg then states that at that size, Cyborg should be able to absorb the energy that's released from the explosion. Jean is then confused by what Cyborg means, with Cyborg explaining that he's immune to the virus, and that while he can't repel it, he can absorb it like he did with Gizmo. With this realization, Jean then states that whatever the mother box did to him made him the very antibody for the virus. Cyborg states that if the atom energy what Ryan calls it, can't shrink the mother box, then Cyborg will have to enter the mother box just like with Steppenwolf. Jean, however, points out that to do that, Cyborg needed energy from the Flash, and they don't have time to contact him. However, Cyborg reveals an alternative in the form of the hidden body of Reverse Flash, shocking both Jean and Ryan. Ryan questions the body of Reverse Flash, to which Jean explains after reading Cyborg's mind that Cyborg keeps his body in order to study what's called the Speed Force, but points out that his body can only generate negative Speed Force. Cyborg points out how that's all he'll need, and begins absorbing the body's negative Speed Force, red lightning radiating around Cyborg. After getting charged with the negative Speed Force, everything was set for one last assault on Steppenwolf's base. Meanwhile, at the base in Russia, Grid continues charging the mother box with the virus, which is almost ready to be unleashed. Just then, Cybergirl looks up, witnessing Cyborg and Martian Manhunter arriving, only to be greeted by Technos Sapiens that were hiding under the rubble of the base, ready to ambush them. After assuming that the army must have been collected on the way over to this base, Martian Manhunter decides to deal with the army while Cyborg makes a run for the mother box, followed by Cyborg nodding in agreement. The duo then charges ahead, Martian Manhunter covering Cyborg as he gets closer and closer to Grid and the mother box. Suddenly, Cybergirl jumps down to confront Cyborg. Cyborg then tries to reason with Tonia, stating that surrendering her aunt's humanity is a fate worse than death. However, Tonia states that her aunt's all she's ever had and won't let Cyborg take her away from her. Cyborg and Cybergirl then enter their final battle. After a lengthy fight, Cyborg begins to notice that the mother box is almost ready to explode, but is being held back by Cybergirl, who keeps asking Cyborg why he's trying to take her aunt away from her out of her own desperation. As the battle reaches its conclusion, Cyborg is badly damaged, almost near death. Just then, Cyborg has a flashback to the day he helped Tonia, under the identity of Sarah, change her grades. As Victor's mother was inside the dean's office, Tonia approaches Victor, stating that he didn't have to help her. Victor, however, states that his mother always taught him that being a decent human being meant helping people in need. From there, images of Victor spending time together with Tonia are shown, making them amount to be close friends ever since that day. Back in reality, Cyborg then grabs Cybergirl's head and begins connecting with her, or similarly to the mother boxes, and begins to see into her memories. Within Tonia's mindscape, we see her perspective of that day, revealing that ever since that day, she fell for him. We then quickly see the same images of their friendship until we finally make it one day to a memory of school. The memory shows Tonia beginning to notice the days that Victor had been absent from school until she would hear the announcement that Victor Stone had died in a car accident. This would bring Tonia into a great sorrow, and ultimately return to the drug of tar in order to cope. We then hear Tonia's actual voice speaking to Cyborg, stating that the tar drug suppressed her emotions, made her less human, and so took away the pain and sorrow of everyone she lost. Cyborg then finds the image of present Tonia, with her stating that after losing her parents she lost herself in the drug, but then got her aunt and then met Victor. With both of them, she felt she had finally had what she needed. Then after Victor's death, she ultimately relapsed. The drug ultimately damaged the inside of her body nearly beyond repair due to the chemical compound known as venom laced within the drug. Cyborg and Tonia then see an image of Sarah Charles and Gizmo, both working together at the request of Sarah to turn Tonia into a cyborg in order to save her life and make her body immune to the drug. Tonia then explains that it wasn't long after that her aunt was diagnosed, and Tonia chose a life of crime to pay for the hospital bills by doing jobs for Gizmo. Tonia then reveals that, like Victor's mother, she lost her parents in a car accident too, and ever since she's been just losing even the people she loves over and over again. Tonia then begs Victor not to take her one chance to save her aunt away from her. However, instead of arguing, Cyborg then decides to show Tonia what the mother boxes are capable of. Tonia then sees the memories of Cyborg, the mother boxes forming the Unity, and witnesses the nightmare timeline that Cyborg keeps seeing in his head. The sight of this shocks and horrifies Tonia, shouting for Cyborg to stop showing her these images. Meanwhile, in reality, as Grid witnesses Martian Manhunter beginning to push back the Technos Sapiens, Grid decides to activate their mutation, leading them all to transform into cybernetic insectoid monstrosities, basically killing the hosts. As Tonia and Cyborg regain consciousness to witness this, Tonia realizes exactly what she'd be turning her aunt into, much to her disappointment and sorrow at the realization that she was losing her aunt either way. Tonia cries at this revelation, but Cyborg wipes the tear from her left eye. Cyborg then states that while they may not be able to save her from her ailment, they can still make sure she lives her life as long as she can, as a human. After standing, Cyborg then extends his hand to help Tonia up, to which she finally accepts. As Technos Sapiens begin to surround the duo, gunfire suddenly shoots some of them down, revealing that Rick Flag has arrived via helicopter, telling Cyborg via comlink that Waller doesn't want to owe Cyborg for rescuing them for a long-term time, so this is all of the backup he's getting. Cybergirl then states that she'll help handle them and tells Victor to go stop Grid. Cyborg then advances and catches up to Grid, who must now stall the charging process to deal with Cyborg. Grid states that he's made a human error, something Cyborg states is normal, and that's just the way he likes it. Cyborg and Grid then begin their great battle, while Martian Manhunter, Cybergirl, and Rick Flag work together to defeat the last of the Technos Sapiens. Back at Silas's lab, Ryan contacts Cyborg via comlink, stating that he needs to shoot the mother box now, stating that even though Grid's disconnected from it, the mother box is charged enough to slowly build it up on its own without Grid being connected to it. As the Martian Manhunter, Rick Flag, and Cybergirl deal with the Technos Sapiens, Cybergirl looks up to see Cyborg struggling against Grid. In the midst of battle, Cyborg loads up the Atom Energy into his right arm to prepare to fire, but knows that he only has one chance. Cyborg flies up, attempting to get a good aim at the mother box, but is interrupted by Grid, who easily knocks Cyborg down. Cyborg then decides to cause an explosion, propelling him and Grid up in the air, giving Cyborg a clear shot at the mother box while in midair. As Cyborg aims for the box, Grid attempts to get in Cyborg's way of aim, but Cybergirl then charges and pushes Grid out of the way, giving Cyborg the chance he needs to fire. As Cyborg is about to fire, he says his signature phrase, "Booyah." Cyborg then fires the Atom Energy at the mother box, causing it to slowly begin to shrink. Cyborg then swiftly jets toward the box, grabbing in between both of his hands. Just then, the mother box finally releases a small explosion, leading Cyborg to begin absorbing the energy. Grid then knocks Cybergirl off of it and jets towards Cyborg until it grabs him, leading Cybergirl to then grab onto Grid and try to pry him off of Cyborg. As the three struggle, a huge flash of light is then released, engulfing the entire area. Ryan then calls out to everyone, asking if they're all okay. As the light dims, Martian Manhunter is revealed to be okay, with the remaining Technos Sapiens around them being cured of the virus. Martian Manhunter then acts quickly to grab all of the civilians he can to keep them from getting affected by the toxicity levels in the area. As the smoke clears, Cyborg is okay, as is Cybergirl, who laughs in slight joy while shedding tears, realizing that they finally won. Cyborg then reaches his hand out to Tonia, and right as she's about to take it, cybernetic cables begin wrapping around her from behind. As the remaining smoke cleared, Cyborg would witness Grid's survival in horror, attempting to infect Cybergirl. With a distorted, mysterious, and aggressively feminine voice, Grid states that it will rebirth its empire and bring this planet into submission, even if it has to turn the whole planet into a machine. Oddly, he's showing emotion. Cyborg then instantly blasts and destroys Grid's body, knocking down Tonia as a result. As Cyborg attempts to check Tonia's state, she then gets up and begins attacking Cyborg, revealing that Grid has taken her over via hacking into her mind via her cybernetics. After pushing Cyborg back, Grid then picks up the small mother box, oddly forcing it to regrow and recharge it. Cyborg then acts quickly and grabs the box in her hand, attempting to take it from her, but to no avail. As a last resort, Cyborg decides to use the negative speed force within himself in an attempt to enter the mother box and drag Grid's consciousness with him in a final attempt to finish things. A flash of light once again is released as the consciousness of Cyborg and Grid are entered into the mother box. Within the world of the mother box, Cyborg appears in the same place he did the last time he was within the mother box during Steppenwolf's invasion, which possesses the visage of the nightmare future to seemingly come. Cyborg then looks around until he sees Tonia floating at the center of the circular area. As Cyborg gets closer, he sees a dark floating shadow surrounding the image of Tonia's body. Not having many options, Cyborg decides to blast the shadow, seemingly knowing that it wouldn't harm Tonia. Tonia then regains consciousness, then asking Cyborg where they are. Cyborg explains that he refers to this world as the Motherscape, the very mindscape of the mother boxes. However, a womanly voice from the shadow states that it's much more than that, and that it's the realm of her very being. The shadow then finally transforms to that of a woman wearing the same attire native to those of Apocalypse, portrayed by Glenn and Close. The woman then reveals herself to be the former queen of Apocalypse, named Hegra. Hegra then goes on to explain that she once ruled Apocalypse alongside her husband, Yuga Khan, but after her husband's passing in battle, she was killed and usurped by her own son, Euxis. But thanks to Cyborg, she's finally whole again and can take over Earth before Darkseid even invades, confirming that now that their consciousness are intertwined within the mother box, she knows about Cyborg's visions of Darkseid and the nightmare future. Cyborg questions Hegra how he's responsible for her being whole, to which she explains that after her son betrayed her, her soul was divided and placed within the three mother boxes, hence the name of Mother Box. Hegra then states that every time the unity is formed, her soul is one in the blink of an eye. However, Hegra then explains that when Cyborg attempted to separate the boxes, she took her chance to finally piece together her soul and finally become whole within one of the boxes. And then after Gizmo came in and experimented on the box, she saw her chance to gain a new body and conquer a new world in preparation for her son Darkseid's arrival, since it's seemingly inevitable. Cyborg and Cybergirl, however, don't plan on letting her have her way, standing in Hegra's way of taking over Tonia's body. Hegra then states that she won't be beaten by weak, feeble humans with a few fancy upgrades, but Cyborg and Cybergirl argue that their humanity is all they'll need. The epic battle begins, clashing Cyborg and Cybergirl's weapons with Hegra's apocalyptic dark magic. As it seems like Hegra's getting the upper hand, Cyborg then sends out a signal, seemingly calling for something. Hegra states that his desperation will not save them, but just then, the pure Technos Sapiens arrive and pile on top of Hegra, giving Cyborg and Cybergirl a chance to finish things. Cybergirl then grabs Cyborg by his shoulders, giving him all of the energy she can muster from her cybernetics, followed by Cyborg revealing his sonic cannon, accurately looking like the version from the Teen Titans cartoon. Hegra then asks who they think they are, leaving Cyborg to reply that they are cyborgs. After blasting Hegra with enough energy, her soul explodes and evaporates, unleashing a giant flash of blue light. As the light dims, Hegra is finally destroyed. Cyborg then cheers for the first time in a long time, shouting his signature phrase, "Booyah." As Cyborg turned to share his excitement with Tonia, he then sees that she's on the ground, slowly fading away. As Cyborg consoles her, Tonia states that they're just images of their consciousness, and she gave all the energy her consciousness could muster to him for one last attack against Hegra. Cyborg then begins to panic, stating that he'll find a way to save her, and that he's not leaving her again. Tonia, however, places her left hand on Cyborg's human face, stating that it's okay, and that she is he's got to protect the two most important people to her. As Cyborg begins to shed a tear down his face, Tonia states that her only regret is that she never got to have a future with Victor, and that she truly loves him and has never stopped. Tonia then places her two index fingers on Cyborg's right temple, injecting some unknown data within his mind. Cyborg asks Tonia what she just did, to which she responds that it's one last gift from her and his father, the data he left behind that he injected into the box when he first saved him, immediately disappearing after revealing this. As Cyborg cries in the middle of the motherscape, his consciousness returns to reality. Cyborg awakens with tears in his right eye. Cyborg then consoles the unconscious Tonia, crying for her until his tears are finally dry. The next day in Silas's lab, Cyborg looks at a news report pertaining to the incidents at Jump City. Jean, in the form of Swanwick, asks if he's doing okay, to which Cyborg responds yes. Cyborg then shows a surveillance camera of the unconscious Tonia in a hospital bed, confirming that she's alive, but in a coma that not even he knows if she'll pull through from. Jean questions about the state of her consciousness as he recalls Cyborg telling him that she gave it up to save him and her aunt. Cyborg then states that he's been secretly wiring money to the hospital to ensure that Sarah Charles is well taken care of, both health-wise and financially wise. Cyborg then states that before Sarah passes, she will see her niece again, and that Cyborg won't stop until he's found a way to put her consciousness back into her mind. John then questions Cyborg about what he's going to do about the whole Darkseid situation, with Cyborg confirming that he finally thinks he's ready to tell everyone, in hopes of preventing such a dark future. John then tells Cyborg that he's thinking like a human every day, but Cyborg corrects John, stating that he's thinking like a true decent person. After Jean takes his leave, Cyborg then integrates the data Tonia gave him into the main computer, only to find it password protected. After a couple wrong passwords, Cyborg then types in the phrase, "Booyah," finding that it's the right password. Just then, a recording of a video message from Silas Stone plays. In this recording, Silas explains to Victor, who was meant to see this, that he knows that he hasn't been around and even broke his promise to go to his first game. But he's been working on a big project called Grid, an artificial intelligence that's meant to help the world because of its programming to think more like a human. Silas admits that he's lived his life as if he wasn't human, and never really figured out how to live like a normal human until he met his wife, and eventually had Victor. Despite this, Silas knows that what Victor is going to be is better than him, stating that he heard about how he changed his friend's grade, and while he is his parent and should be teaching him better, is proud of the reason behind it, wanting to help someone in need like a decent person. And that's why he wants to finish Project Grid, to help people just like Victor and his mother, or help people every day. Silas states that he's proud of Victor, and always will be, as well as stating that he loves him and always will. Silas's narrating continues on, asking Cyborg to create a new future, a happy one. Just as Cyborg is listening to this recording, he then transforms his chest into the symbol of C, his symbol in honor of Cybergirl. He then begins typing up something as hours seem to pass by as the narration continues. As Silas ends his recording telling Victor to never forget who he is, Cyborg deletes the project name Project Grid and renames it Project Watchtower. A post-credit scene shows Ryan Choi experimenting with atom energy at Star Labs, successfully shrinking something, but not being able to grow due to testing it with an apple on the table. After a bit of compound and calculation change, Ryan uses an atom energy laser one more time on the apple, successfully growing it bigger than a normal apple. As Ryan cheers in excitement, he sees a reflection in the mirror of a prototype exosuit, stating that perhaps it's time for a new experiment. A second post-credit scene shows Batman in the Batcave, seemingly working on something on his main computer. Just then, Batman gets a message from Cyborg saying to assemble the League, stating that it's urgent. Before leaving, Batman types in one last thing on his computer, showing a list of the names of the Justice League and their weaknesses. I hope you guys really enjoyed this rewrite. It was a difficult challenge to write a movie for Cyborg, who doesn't have many popular solo comic storylines, but I made it work with what I could find. If you guys did like this rewrite, don't forget to like, share, Hulk smash that subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell so you can stay updated on the latest videos. Also, don't forget to check out our merch store and our Buy Me a Coffee page down in the description and pinned comment below so you guys can help the channel grow, as well as click on our affiliate at Amazon link in the very same places. With all that said and done, I'm JT Anime. I'll check you guys later, and hashtag restore the Snyderverse.